but
Javier, he's just like,
and he's very over the top, but it's still enjoyable. He's just kind of insane.
he is, but he's smart because again, now that we're in spoiler alert, he's basically the James Bond of the past. He was the favorite agent of M. He was the go-to 00 agent.
Yeah.
And then something terrible happened, and they kind of left him to suffer.
Yeah, they ended up trading him to the Chinese, so like they gave him up, and the Chinese gave back 6 agents they had captured, and he was stuck being tortured for like 6 months, and then he took a cyanide tablet that like he cracked his tooth to take it, but it didn't kill him and just like burned out his insides.
Yeah, fucked him up pretty hard.
Yeah, that face scene was pretty cool. It didn't really have any point to the rest of the movie though, but
it didn't, no.
it was a cool visual, I guess.
It was interesting.
And it sort of recycles the plot from like The Dark Knight to the point it wasn't surprise. Like, you know, he gets captured maybe 40 minutes into the movie, and you know that obviously it's not going to be credits.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. So you kind of know that it was like, oh man, he was planning to get captured so that he could kill, because his whole basic thing is he's trying to kill Judi Dench because she's the one who gave him up, and he feels betrayed by her.
Betrayed would be a good way to describe the entire film. I think. Is that's kind of the key behind what's going on.
Yeah.
He becomes kind of a really expert at computers as well, which is interesting. Where he's like, I guess the way they play it out in the timeline, they play it out as he was kind of left in the 80s, and then he escaped, and then he became really, really great at using computers.
Mm-hmm. And
so he's basically, you know, the top, or one of the top hackers in the world, and computer programmers, and he can do all this great stuff, and it's kind of, you know, it kind of plays on the thing that computers are, you know, the future of terrorism, and
I like that he wasn't really like really a terrorist. Like, he never asked for money, and his plan was never to like destroy the world or anything. He pretty much, he said like he can go on any mission he wants, so he still does like 00 missions, just ones that he assigns himself, which is kind of like he's like a freelance 007, which is kind of a good thing to do. It's just that he wants to get revenge first, which is obviously contradictory, and he's crazy, so he kills a bunch of people. And inconveniently, at the same time that Judi Dench is up for review as M, it's poor timing.
It is.
Or poor timing. Roger Moore. Because, she's getting a hard time from Ralph Fiennes. I gotta say, I think it was very classy of the British government to give Lord Voldemort a second chance and allow him to be employed.
I agree.
I think that's a ballsy move.
You know what? Ralph Fiennes is such a good actor, and I like him so much. But even though he had wonderful Voldemort makeup, I still see Voldemort every time I see him on screen.
I know.
It's hard to get away from that.
Yeah.
And Harry Potter was such a big thing that I don't know.
Was Judi Dench in the Harry Potter movies?
I don't think
she was, which is weird because they had like every other major British actor you could think of.
Yeah. They didn't go.
I guess Hugh Grant wasn't in it either.
Hugh Grant's not a major British actor.
What are you talking about, man? Didn't you see his American accent in fucking whatchamacallit?
No.
Atlas Cloud? Oh.
I can honestly say that I don't ever watch.
He was good in Love Actually. That movie's awesome. It's actually awesome. Huh? No. And then basically what happens is he escapes and he goes after M, and then the James Bond and M decide to go. They're going to go hide out in Skyfall, which was like James's early Scottish home, which is cool because you never hear them talk about James Bond as like a young kid.
No.
Ever. Which once again brings more realism to the series, right? Because you're getting into this character story of a time when he wasn't like this invincible badass ladies man, and he's got a cool Scottish like caretaker who's full of like
apparently
remarks.
James Bond's family had some money, and his parents died when he was really young, and he was an orphan. And they touch on that too when M says that the best 00s are orphans.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's pretty interesting as well. They kind of go into that past, and it kind of comes full circle, which is something that I really appreciate about this movie. But it's also something that infuriates me about the James Bond series as it stands now, which is the timelines, because the timelines are all fucked up.
You mean because James is always there, but everyone else ages and gets replaced? Or
no, not even that. Is that they kind of... they kind of set this up as this was going to be before James Bond was a 007, correct? Like James
Because
Bond
Casino Royale didn't
he
that
earned
start?
his
Yeah,
00
he earned his in
00
Casino
ranking
Royale.
Casino Royale. But then you get to Pierce Brosnan. You go to Pierce Brosnan ones, and M is still M. Judi Dench still plays M, even though in this movie, spoiler alert, M is killed.
That's true, and
So
she was like the new person in GoldenEye. That was
So like, if I don't know.
Yeah, and if you go back to the older
intersyncing,
ones, M used to be a guy. I can't remember the name.
I don't know if they're starting with Casino Royale and then doing like GoldenEye and then doing a couple of the other ones and then doing Quantum, and they're putting it that way. But the timeline is kind of messed up because M was a man in the earlier James Bond. Like
I don't think you can worry about the timeline though. It's just
it's annoying to me.
It's annoying. Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the things you just have to let go, right? Because if you look at the number of Qs and
Q was the same guy for a very long time.
Yeah, but then he got switched, and I'm pretty sure John Cleese was a Q.
He was
in one of them.
In one of them, John Cleese was the Q, which is the funniest.
Which is good.
Q
Once again, the British government, not only Lord Voldemort, but they're also hiring ghosts with head problems. Gotta appreciate that as well.
That's very true.
Nearly headless Q.
But having said that, I thought this movie was very, 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 very well done. It was well executed. They had a really great use. Just talking about cinematography and stuff here for a second, they had a really good use of visuals. I thought.
Yeah, opening credit sequence was awesome. Which I guess they're always pretty awesome, but this one I thought was really, really good.
When they attack the house and you have,
it turns into Home Alone, but for like adults.
Yeah, you have the house on fire in the background. This huge thing of flames in the dark. So you have this big orange light in the back, and then the play of shadows when you have, Javier Bardem walking towards.
When he's on the ice and talking. Yeah,
like, all the use of visuals in this and the cinematography was very well done.
Yeah,
I thought.
No, I agree. It was very visual. I don't have many flaws with the movie, other than I guess that I didn't get the same emotional response that I got out of Casino Royale. No offense to Judi Dench, it was like it was a sad scene and all, but I guess it wasn't as powerful for me. And also, there was nothing to surprise me.
Yeah,
like I was never as good as the movie was. There was nothing that shocked me about it. There's nothing that kind of stepped it up out of the game. It was just a good story, but not a great one. Although I'm kind of happy that they didn't do a twist. I expected a twist. I thought that girl that got... we'll get to the women next. But I thought that girl that Javier Bardem killed was going to come back and be like, oh, twist, she's a villain. Because I guess I kind of... After... I think it was Tomorrow Never Dies. After seeing that one, I always expect someone's going to twist around and turn out to be a villain. But...
yeah, no, I think...
Those were, I guess, the only real flaws for me. Was no surprises or anything that I couldn't really see coming.
Yeah. It didn't have that.
It just didn't have that thing that stepped it up to like a whoa, right? Like when I saw Casino Royale, I was like, whoa, this is so much better than Die Another Day.
Yeah, I agree. It didn't have that Daryl Sheets wow factor that we all look for.
I don't know what that is.
Storage Wars, man.
I don't watch Storage Wars.
You should watch Storage Wars.
Sorry.
Brandy has huge tits.
Oh, okay.
And they buy weird things and find cool stuff in storage units.
Red Couch reviews plus watch Storage Wars.
Yeah. Check out Storage Wars on A&E.
I'd recommend Boardwalk Empire, but to each their own. Okay, well let's get to the other staple of James Bond movies, because there wasn't really much gadgets in this one, obviously.
They made note, actually, just before we do Babe Rundown. I think
Babe Rundown.
I feel like we should just mention that there was subtle nods to earlier James Bond.
Oh yeah, those were great
throughout the movie, in very well placed nods too. It wasn't terribly.
No, none of them, other than the car, none of them were terribly over the top. And the car is allowed to be terribly over the top.
Yeah.
That got a huge audience reaction.
It did.
When he goes to get a car when they're escaping London, and he goes to like one of his parking garage, and he's got like, I can't remember which one it's in, but it's one of the famous James Bond cars, and he like pulls it back, and literally the whole audience, it was like the reaction in the second Twilight movie that women made when Taylor Lautner was like, "Oh my God, you're bleeding. Let me take my shirt off and clean you." And all the women in the audience were like, "Oh!" And that was that, but it applied to, you know, regular people, and it was over a car instead. Did you get that? Did you get, like, did your audience do the visible, like, "Oh"?
Yeah, no, they did. I think they just appreciated it. If you saw James Bond on opening weekend, then I think those are the people that like the James Bond movies traditionally.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have a lot of more dedicated fans in the audience. And I think those dedicated fans appreciate those nods to the earlier ones, especially with, you know, the lack of gadgets, but they acknowledge the lack of gadgets, which is cool.
I love the part, because I am a big GoldenEye fan, I love the part where when James Bond goes to get his weapons from the new Q, who's like this young guy or whatever, and he gives him a gun and a radio, and he's like, "That's it?" He's like, "What'd you expect, an exploding pen?" I was like, "Oh, that's fucking awesome."
Yeah.
Solid nod.
That was great.